So thank you, Shauna. So in terms of tonight, I'll do a brief introduction. Then we will go and have Andy Escobar, who's a communications fellow in our office. We'll do update you on the youth agenda. We actually have our partners from Unlimited Potential here tonight to update you on the climate justice agenda. We have another fellow, Dylan Evans, who will update you on the neighborhood agenda, and then I will update you on the business agenda. We did a session earlier at noon where we went in depth into the business agenda. Tonight, we'll just do a quick overview of the business agenda and spend the majority of time with youth, climate justice, and neighborhoods. So to remind you, the Climate Action Plan is a policy document focused on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and adopting resilient investments in programs. We focus on resilience to extreme heat in our CAP work. This document and this work helps us prioritize actions and work on cost-effective solutions. We also are working on obviously conserving resources such as water and energy in a way that is also improving our quality of life here in Tempe. So just so you know, what each of the agendas have an actions component, a partnerships component, and then a highlight action from the existing climate action plan. Here's the main thing that we heard as an Office of Sustainability. We heard that voices of Tempe youth and voices of climate justice and social justice leaders, voices of neighborhoods, and voices of businesses needed to be centered in our climate work. So instead of going ahead and adopting 100 new actions for our own climate action plan, we still have our climate action plan. This update is going to be 4 agendas that are focused on the voices and opinions and desired actions of these 4 key stakeholder groups. So what you read and hear about in these agendas were created in partnership with these communities in Tempe. We were lucky enough to have Unlimited Potential on contract with the city as a community-based organization that helped us create this, is helping us create this climate justice agenda. And then we had a partnership with Local First Arizona and the Tempe Chamber of Commerce to help us create the business agenda. And then my office did the listening and engagement on the neighborhood and youth agenda. So that's one thing that was a little confusing this morning. People were like, well, why does the city have an action that they might not be able to accomplish? And well, the reason that those actions are in there and they're not all necessarily accomplishable at the city level is because that's what we were hearing from our youth, from our neighborhoods, from our target neighborhoods and climate justice leaders, and from our businesses. So this is a little bit different. If you've been to some of our climate work a few years ago, this is a little bit different from that. This isn't, we will derive city policies and actions out of what we're hearing in these agendas, but these agendas very much are the voices of the people that helped create them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy to do that work. But before we get started on the agendas, I did want to give an opportunity to Councilwoman Lauren Kuby to welcome you and say a few words.
Thank you, Braden. Thank you, Dr. K. I really appreciate it. And you forgot to announce that you're now the Office of Sustainability and Resilience, right?
Yes, it's very exciting.
Did I get it right? I think I got it wrong. Anyway.
No, that's correct. It's sustainability and resilience.
Okay. I'm really good to be here. I have to hop off in about a half an hour, but there's been so much engagement with this climate action plan, and we thought we'd engage people up and down and all around in climate action plan 1.0, but to embrace the unlimited potential partnership and working with folks like Masavi Perea, who I love dearly, I mean, I think that we're going to have a much more real and true assessment of the actions that we should be taking. It was a brilliant move, I think, to sort of remove it from the city structure and to ask Unlimited Potential to go out into the communities and get feedback and speak directly to affected populations. So I thank you so much for that. I'm really eager to hear what the updates are, and take it away, Braden, and thank you to all the staff that's been working on this, Shauna and everyone else associated with the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kuby. So with that, Andy, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Brayden. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Escobar. I'm the Sustainability Communications Fellow for the Office of Sustainability and Resilience. Today, I will be presenting the youth agenda. This youth agenda was created by Tempe High School students, recent college graduates, and community members who work with Tempe youth. To engage with this audience, we held a virtual forum and 2 focus groups. Next slide, please. 2 actions that came out of the forum were food and equity. For food, Tempe youth believe that the city should improve food access and food entrepreneurship options and increase green space. Tempe already has established programs and services targeted at increasing food access, but youth believe that Tempe can still find ways to increase food access through creating new programs. Their suggested programs were to install composting sites at schools, provide educational cooking programs that use wasted food, establish school gardens, and reduce or eliminate the cost of school meals. Next slide. Tempe youth are also asking the city to do more to address equity. Some actions they want to see are based around food equity and others are around transportation. For food equity, youth want to ensure easier access to healthy food for residents of all income levels, remove or decrease taxes on produce and other healthy foods, provide free or affordable food and water options at transit centers and bus stops. For transportation equity, youth want to increase overall accessibility for people with physical and mental disabilities, implement free or affordable transportation options, and increase tree canopy and overall shade at transportation centers. Next slide. As for partnerships, students have expressed a desire for school boards and school leaders to take a leadership role in climate action. Youth would like to see schools pass climate action resolutions. Some benefits of passing climate action resolutions are that they create a stronger sense of community, encourage hands-on learning, generate savings through energy efficiency, foster more beautiful campuses, raise awareness of climate change, and the desire to work towards solutions. Next slide. Students would also like to be involved and engaged. They would like to be involved during and after the resolutions are passed, continue to attend meetings, listen to and enact student ideas, and ensure the resolutions contain immediate actions. Types of programs students would like to see in their schools are recycling programs and educational sessions that empower students to get involved in climate action. Students would also like to see written legislation and guidelines that bring climate change education into the classroom and a focus on both immediate and long-term changes. Next slide. A highlight action youth give importance to is green infrastructure. Students would like their schools to adopt green infrastructure designs for their campuses. Some key features of green infrastructure are that it supports urban cooling, creates shade, saves water, captures stormwater, and keeps streets clear during storms. Next slide. So mobility hubs is the highlight action that youth would like to focus on. Though youth stress that public transportation options must be accessible and affordable. Accessibility and affordability are very important to young people, seeing as they, as a demographic, rely the most on others for their transportation needs. Locations where Tempe youth envision mobility hubs. Oh, sorry, if you can go back, thank you. So locations where Tempe youth envision mobility hubs are at Tempe schools, college and university campuses, in residential neighborhoods, near local businesses, and along the canal. Next slide. sorry, looking at my notes. Youth believe mobility hubs can increase the number of transportation options, make public transportation more affordable, safe and reliable, bring a sense of community, and increase carpooling and ride sharing. Youth also believe mobility hubs can decrease the use of single occupancy vehicles and lower carbon emissions. Next slide. All right, so now we open the floor to those who have joined us tonight. We would like to ask you 2 questions regarding the youth agenda. The first question is, what additional actions should be considered in this agenda? And the next question is, as a young person or student, how can you become involved in the next actions the city takes with green infrastructure and mobility hubs? You can submit your answers in the chat and we can read them out loud and go into detail.
Hi team, this is Shannon, Public Information Officer. Just want to let you know at this time there are no questions in the chat or comments.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Then we're going to move on to the climate justice agenda. And Emma or Masabi, if you guys are ready to present.
Yes, we are ready. Thank you, everyone. Masabi Perea here with Unlimited Potential. Thank you, Braden, for this amazing work. Thank you, Councilwoman Kuvi. We are very excited also for, because we are working with Tempe and also we are learning. So thank you for this amazing opportunity. And I really hope that other cities, the region can learn from this experience where we can work community and community stakeholders and government in the same table, so we can create a better agenda. Thank you. So what Unlimited Potential and the city of Tempe, what we have been doing is we have been creating conversations with the community. And I would like to say that this conversation has been in 2 different phases. The first phase was to listening and learn more about Tempe. I think although Tempe is very well known, I think you don't know Tempe until you talk to the neighbors, until you talk to people who lives, works, and recreating in Tempe. I think that was a beautiful experience. So that was the first phase. The second phase was to okay, how can we make Tempe better in a sense of environmental justice? I think that was the second phase that also we learned a lot about Tempe. So from these 2 phases, we had different meetings. But before the meetings, what we did is we were knocking doors. We were talking with people in different neighborhoods, and we were asking questions, right, about why Tempe is so beautiful, but also how Tempe can be better, how Tempe can be more welcoming, and how Tempe can be more sustainable, and also how Tempe can be more environmental justice, create more environmental justice. So one of the first meetings that we had, it was with the stakeholders and community leaders. So we have a couple meetings with again, community leaders, and I'm talking about neighborhood associations, organizations, LGBTQ organizations, and any other social entities as well. We invite also indigenous partners. And then we were talking about how Tempe is been doing, and also like why was important to start talking about climate change, and also what was important to deal with this issue as right now. That was, I think that was one of the first meetings, a very intense meeting. And then the second meeting, it was again with community leaders. from different parts of the city. And the third and fourth meeting, and the fifth meeting, actually, that was with community in general. We had a couple of meetings in different places. We had a meeting in a community center. We had a meeting in a school. We had a meeting in church, and we have a couple of meetings on gardening and gardens. So these meetings, right? People were opening, and people was sharing, right, their frustrations, but also why they want to stay in Tempe. So the three issues that we heard and we learned from Tempe residents are, the first one was parks and green areas. They, although the city is oh, sorry, yeah, thank you for moving the presentation. So again, one, yeah, can you go to, yeah, actions, land stewardship. So people was asking about green areas, right? So as you may know, right, Tempe, it was an agricultural town, farms, and everything is changing. So people was saying, right, how can they promote again to agriculture and farms, but also in the houses, in the backyard gardens, to create more. Something else, it was to increase the plant tree canopies along with bike lanes and sidewalks. People wants to walk, and something that is not only in Tempe, but it's in the area, right? In the valley, there is no culture of walking and biking, and there are many reasons why. So another one was to utilize the plant native vegetation to increase urban cooling and water conservation. Going back to the roots, that was one of the first issues that the community was saying. And I think also, right, after this very interesting landlord acknowledgement, we need to still keep working with indigenous communities. This is indigenous communities, and Tempe, it is in one of the very important areas. So give back historically and seed land to indigenous communities. That was also part of this conversation. Can you please go to the next slide? So yes, partnership, unlimited potential was talking with different community groups. We were having various meetings with community people, and something that the community was saying is that that we need to take care of communities who has been living in Tempe and that they want to stay. So as we know, right, the housing industry is just getting crazy in the valley. So something that they were suggesting, it was to put in a cap on rent to ensure affordable housing, to stop gentrification, because something that happens every time is when you know, see the city of Tempe invests in one park or one community, you know, rents are going up, and people need to move. So something else, again, about the culture of walking, safe roads to promote alternative transportation, right? I think that's another something also very important. And going back to focus on regenerative and healthy forms of agriculture. And something, again, because gentrification, something that is happening, we can see unfortunately a lot of people without home, and we need to work with this unsheltered community in a very with a lot of equity and to support. And also moving from customer culture to circular economy, right? To be more open to invest, but also to consume local. That was also something else that the meeting and the partnership we got from community partners. Can you please go to the next slide? So yeah, so well, that is gonna be yeah, I don't think I'm gonna talk about that.
Well, I mean, Masavi, just talk about the event that you're doing later, you know, in October. You can talk about the fact that this is something you're working on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Brent. So we still have another meeting with community members where we wanna bring more people, but also to hear more information. But one of the other things that we Unlimited was working is with what is called Envision Tempe, which is a community center that is I'm sorry, that is on the heart of Tempe, that we want to involve people to see what they want to see on this community center. So we start the process to talk to people around the area and also to hear suggestions. So the Envision Tempe, there are going to be some benefits, like it's going to promote community self-reliance and community sustainability, centralized community centers, center institutions and programs, improves access to health improvement initiatives, revitalizes communities through local efforts, and foster great community connections. I think something that also we see is that community was complaining about how they can get help, or how can they connect with other groups or other services in a very more easy way. So I think Envision Tempe Center, this is going to be another one, another issue. I mean, something that is going to help. Is that the last?
Yes, but Masavi, you didn't really get a chance to talk about the heat awareness and energy work and some of what you've heard about energy equity.
Yes,
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Ren. Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I didn't put it there. But something else that we were talking with people, it was as Ren said, about heat. That was part of the first conversation. That was the way how we start any meeting, talking about heat, what people think about heat, and how can we work with heat, right? So people gave us a lot of ideas, and of course one of the ideas, it was to have more green areas, to have more trees, and all that. But I think a complaint that we hear a lot with people was about how expensive is electricity, how electricity can change the way how people live. Not only because it's too hot, but the way how can people afford these electricity bills? Something that we were listening was that people was mentioned every time. It was that during summertime, the bills were just too expensive, and some people need to decide if they want to put food on the table or to pay the electricity bills. So there were a couple suggestions, right? Like whether the size and update existing living spaces, incentivize the use of natural and clean energy resources. I think that was very heavy. Fund and mobilize neighborhoods as a collective energy action, promote water conservation and increase native vegetation in neighborhoods, and change electricity bill structures. All users are allowed an amount of energy and no cost. There are many things that other cities or other neighborhoods are doing, but I think, and I hope, right, that we can continue talking about energy, because I think we have a lot of natural resources, a lot of good ideas, but also neighbors are willing to continue organizing in order to have solutions, right? People also know that the answer is not very easy, and that the answer is not from one person or one entity. They also understand that we have to bring several partners into this. So because let me give you an example, right? Weatherization of apartments or existing living spaces, that's good. But I mean, I don't have the data with me, but there is a lot of people who are renting, right? So people who are renting, they are not able to invest on those places. So that's why I'm saying that we need to bring different sectors into this issue. So heat awareness, right? People also are aware that the heat is not normal, that every year is getting hotter. People is aware, right, that there is not enough water. So, but also people are aware that every year they are paying more electricity, and they are listening about clean energy. So many questions about how they can get clean energy, but the most important, affordable energy. That was one of the questions that people was asking all the time. Emma, I don't know, Emma, if you want to add something else, or if we have more questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Masavi. Thank you so much, Emma. You know, you can see, I'm really glad that Council Member QB pointed it out, which is there's real power behind turning over the keys to community experts like Emma and Masavi and their whole team. And what we heard in the listening session last summer was you need to turn the keys over to a community organization. People promised me, they said, hey, Braden, you will get different ideas. People will tell the community organizations different inputs than what you will get as a city. And I think this proves that to be the case. We're getting a lot more comments about the utilities and frustrations with the utilities than I normally would get as the city. We're getting a lot more around some public health concerns. You know, it's really been an amazing learning process to do this with Emma and Masavi and their whole team at Unlimited Potential. Emma, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, it's actually, it has been a pleasure to learn from the community and to be part of this effort. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and we have two more climate justice events. One is a Envision Tempe meeting, and another is a meeting with a lot of the stakeholders that have helped us build this agenda, just to confirm the agenda and edit it and add a few things. So, you know, I know we saw in the chat a very good point, which is we have people in the audience tonight that are not necessarily a part of our climate justice community, or they're not necessarily in the youth community, but that doesn't mean that you can't give us your thoughts and perspectives on the agendas you're hearing. So feel free to either put things in the chat or speak up. We now have about 10 minutes to go over any thoughts and ideas that you've had on either the youth agenda or the climate justice agenda, but really, you know, happy to hear have a dialogue here about anything we've heard. And then, so feel free to speak up. And then we also know that Gretchen, you wanted to make a comment about public transportation. All right, well, we're waiting to hear from other folks. You know, it is a really great point around city standards for infrastructure. We as city staff have been exploring the use of the Envision certification, which is the LEED and Living Buildings Challenge are a certification for buildings, and then Envision is a certification for infrastructure like roads and bridges and streets and municipal yards and what they call horizontal infrastructure. And so we are about to go to council with a city building sustainability policy to ensure all future buildings are built with the International Green Construction Code. We do not have a requirement for building infrastructure with the Envision certification, but Arizona Department of Transportation and City of Phoenix have done several Envision projects, and I think there could be the potential to build in Envision certification into infrastructure projects. Gretchen, that's sort of a policy way to get the idea you had done. What's amazing about Envision is there is a social justice and climate justice equity component of the certification. So the certification would help make sure that our engineers and staff are working on climate justice issues with every infrastructure project. So it's not something we've had in the plan, but it's definitely something that could be considered as a policy item moving forward. Because I think you're right. Otherwise, we're just depending on individual project managers in the city to incorporate sustainability into every bike path and into every infrastructure project. And we don't have sort of an overarching policy guidance behind that. So it's a very interesting idea. Gretchen, is there anything more you wanted to say about that idea?
Yeah, to me, I think there's a prioritization issue. When you say, or when what we hear from the community is there's a need to center communities that have been left out. What I hear is there's some of the priorities of what gets put in place when may not be of, following those equity assumptions. And so I think some of the things that I heard as needing to happen are things that are in our, they're in our 2040 plan. They were in our 2020 plan. They were, they've been there for a long time, but somehow the money never is spent there. It's spent other places. And it's that, that prioritization piece.
Yeah, it's a great point. Emma and Masavi, do one of you want to talk about the climate justice implementation group that you're tasked with putting together? Because I think part of it, Gretchen, is that there's not a group of stakeholders that are helping hold the city accountable to the prioritization of infrastructure projects. And we really need a group of people that are paid to help hold the city accountable in that way. So I think it's a really important point, Gretchen. And we designed into our contract with Unlimited Potential that they would help put together a group that one of the things they work on is making sure that the city is using equity data to prioritize infrastructure projects. Anything more you want to say about that, Emma?
Absolutely. We are working with community members that are bringing, that are being invested in bringing that change to the community. So we are working with residents of the area, as well as some individuals that have worked with other groups within the areas, such as Tiger Mountain and different other groups that, again, bring the voice of the community. Masavi, do you want to add to it?
Well, I think, again, we need to diversify in order to be able to listen all what is happening in the city, right? So I think this group is going to be very important in order to drive the conversation, and also, as Grayton was mentioning, right, to also to bring back those voices that they are not involved anymore and that they are not used to be asked. I think something very interesting is every time that we are talking with community members are like, okay, but who's going to listen to us? Who's going to make those changes? Who's going to supervise after the plan is done? Who's going to be supervising how we are going to move on? So I think this group is going to be able to support on that, but also is going to be, we need to be very careful in order to bring like diversity, right? And to work with people that are normally, we don't work, or people who are not used to work with government entities as well. So I think this conversation also is like reestablishing the trust, right? It is no secret, right, that a lot of people do not trust in government entities, right? So I think that is what is going to be one of the goals, and we are, talking with different people that they are willing to continue working on these issues.
Regarding the question about what have been asked wording, can they do it? How can we do more?
Well, I think for that question, how can we get more involved? This community, this group that we want, that is the idea to continue working. I think that's going to be one of the ways, right? How can we, how can they get more involved, right? Participating on these conversations. So yes, this group, the name of this group is going to be the Climate Justice Implementation Group. So they are going to continue on it, and they are going to be implementing all the suggestions that the community is giving.
Yeah, and just to answer some of the questions we've just read just recently, you know, we changed with the Sustainability Commission, and Gretchen is on the Sustainability Commission, made the recommendation that we change our name to Sustainability and Resilience to make sure that we were covering not just decarbonization and creating a great place to live in the future, which is, you know, sustainability, but that we were also focused on how we're approaching the changes that are already happening from climate change and reducing our vulnerability to shocks. And so we've been doing that work as an Office of Sustainability since we were officially established by Council in 2018, and since, you know, we've had a sustainability manager position in the city since 2016, but we didn't have resilience in the title, so we thought that that was really, really important. In terms of how individuals can continue to be involved, you know, we get updates on the sustainability policy every with the Sustainability Commission, and we meet on the third Monday of every month. Council Member QB, are you still here? Before you leave, do you want to make a plug, or have you left? I think she left. Okay, so I'll make a plug for the Sustainable and Livable Communities Council Committee, where they're going and working on actual policy changes and investments that the city needs to make. So there's an opportunity to make your voice heard there, both at the Sustainability Commission and at the Council Committee. So those are two ways to get more deeply engaged in the policy development and the work of this plan. And then, as you heard, this Climate Justice Implementation Committee is going to be another group that's going to be helping steer policy and implementation of the climate justice plan. Anyone else want to voice any other thoughts before we get into the neighborhood agenda?
Can I add, because I saw one of the comments, but we are working in Tempe, in the neighborhood, even though we are in 4 main neighborhoods that we're working, but it is really as Mansabi was mentioning, to be inclusive of all the different populations, of all the different groups. And we are working with residents, with community members, and also organizations that brings some of that bigger approach, that diversity, because we don't want to focus just in one group. We want to be inclusive of different groups. So we are working with organizations that work with seniors, with organizations that work with Asian groups, as well as African American, as well as individuals at risk. So it's a different, we are focusing in that diversity.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification, Emma. That's very important and very helpful. And yes, thanks. Shauna just listed into the chat the Sustainable and Livable Communities Council Committee. And then Shauna, if you get a chance to just give the link to the Sustainability Commission as well, that would be really, really great. All right, with that, let's move into the neighborhood agenda, and let's hear from Dylan Evans.
Thanks, Braden. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan, and I'm a Climate Action Fellow with the Office of Sustainability and Resilience, and I'll be talking to you all about the neighborhood agenda tonight. The neighborhood agenda is made up of a super diverse group of people. During our forum, we had Tempe parents come, business owners, we had people from ASU, the city, homeowners, renters, and more. And because of their lived experiences, Tempe residents were able to give insight into the changes needed in our neighborhoods and communities. And again, all the input that you see here comes directly from the residents who attended the forum. So starting out with some actions. The most pressing action that Tempe residents want the city to work on address extreme heat, not surprisingly. Some additional programs that the residents would like to see include 100% bus shelter coverage, community cooling centers, and resilient energy hubs, increased tree canopy across the city to increase the amount of shade that we have, and then, like Andy talked about earlier, installing permeable pavement and more green infrastructure around the city. Next slide, please. Continuing on with some actions. Extreme heat is not only a health and safety issue, but it's also an equity one as well. Residents want Tempe to address issues related to extreme heat that create immediate impact for everyone, especially vulnerable and marginalized groups. The actions that residents told us they'd like to see are shown on the slide here, and they include affordable electricity, ensuring availability of energy, solar panel installation rebates, holding utilities accountable for a transition to renewable energy, building social capital and focusing on community-led solutions, which we'll get to on the next slide, and providing services for people experiencing homelessness to seek shelter. So moving on to partnerships, residents would like to work with community-based organizations to create community-led solutions that invest in equitable action surrounding extreme heat. The actions that we heard from the residents are shown on the slide here, and they include investing more in equitable transportation infrastructure improvements, improving overall infrastructure and accessibility for people with mental and physical challenges, a focus on overall infrastructure improvements for public transportation, as well as addressing health concerns that come with waiting for public transportation with a lack of air conditioning for a long time. Some more actions that residents told us they'd like to work with community-based organizations are shown here. These include an increased connectivity between neighborhoods, businesses, schools, and other public spaces, ensuring that all children in Tempe can safely walk or bike to school, designing and implementing programs that disseminate emergency packs to communities and individuals in need, addressing energy and water equity through reducing or completely eliminating the cost of water and electricity, as well as increasing the availability of green jobs in Tempe.
So Dylan, one sec here. So I saw in the chat earlier this notion that we could be working on the intersection of growing a more sustainable economy. So for instance, we could put forward a budget supplemental that hired a community-based organization or a group of community-based organizations to come up with a green jobs plan for the city of Tempe. So we have put a green economy plan on the we have applied for money, for budget money for that in the past and not gotten funded. But this conversation and what we heard in the chat is making me think that there is an opportunity from the neighborhood agenda perspective to try to work with community-based organizations on a Greens job agenda and a Greens job plan. It's a really, really interesting concept. Sorry to interrupt you, Dylan. Great job here. Thanks for reviewing all of this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. We can move on to the next slide, which is our first highlight action that came out of this agenda, which is resilient energy hubs, which I believe we touched on a little bit earlier. It's a public facility that provides shelter to communities during times of emergency. And a model that Tempe is using to design energy hubs is the Puerto Rico Mercy Corps Resilience Hub that has a lot of great things going for it that you can see on the screen here, including community gardens. They have internet, disaster risk reduction, completely off-grid solar energy is being produced there, and they have potable water. Next slide, please. Another highlight action that came out of this agenda was mobility hubs again. As we went over this earlier on in the slideshow, a mobility hub disperses various transportation options throughout a city block or a district so that people can choose from multiple transportation options, all within walking distance. Tempe residents would like to see mobility hubs located in places like neighborhoods, parks, community centers, and near major transfer points. The transportation options that residents believe mobility hubs should be located in, or believe that mobility hubs should include, are things like bikes, electric buses, bus rapid transit, drone delivery, free public transportation, golf cart shuttles, and more carpool and parking options. And that concludes the neighborhood agenda. We'll have a short Q&A, and some guiding questions for you are: what additional actions should be considered in this agenda? And as a Tempe resident, how can you become involved in the next actions the city takes with mobility hubs? And you can feel free to put any questions, any comments, concerns in the chat. Thank you.
At this time, I don't see any additional questions in the chat.
Thanks, Shannon. And then if you have any ideas additionally about mobility hubs, feel free to put those in the chat as well. But yeah, if there's no other additional comments, you know, in order to move through the material so we don't have to keep you up too late, we can move to the last agenda. And it's my turn. By the way, our fellows did such a wonderful job. A huge thank you to Andy and Dylan for walking us through those agendas and for all the work they've been doing on the Climate Action Plan update. And another just awesome thank you to Emma and Masavi and the whole Unlimited Potential team for the work that they've done. Now, we had two other awesome partners that created this business agenda, the Tempe Chamber of Commerce and Local First Arizona, and then Tempe businesses that both of those organizations have recruited and been working with. And this agenda really reflects the needs of what the business community has said. And look, I just want to be incredibly honest with you. Some people have seen this agenda and said it's not as transformational as we were expecting. We would like to see bolder actions. You know, there's more that businesses could be doing, and that all may be true, but this is the practice of meeting our community where our community is at. And right now, what the business community, what you're about to hear from us is, this is what we heard the business community wants to be working on. So it is really, and it's bread and butter sustainability work, and it needs to happen in Tempe, and it needs more investment in Tempe. And so it might seem a little bit basic, but I think we still have not invested in a lot of very basic business sustainability work here. So until we do, you're going to continue to hear these same messages from the business community. So the number one action from the business community is energy efficiency. So making sure we're reducing carbon emissions and saving money, you know, making sure we're growing the clean energy economy through a culture of cost savings, as well as deeply working with SRP and APS on utility programs for businesses, increasing commitment to rebate programs, making sure we're doing retro commissioning, which is going back into old buildings and putting new technologies and new energy efficiency technologies into buildings. More trainings for small businesses to get trained in how to do energy efficiency, as well as more resources available for energy audits and assessments. So this is the type of work that's been going on in energy efficiency since 1970. This type of work hasn't changed a lot, but it needs more investment than businesses in Arizona, in Maricopa County and in Tempe are getting for this type of work. And we need the utilities to be working with us on energy efficiency, even in a deeper way than they do today. We also heard quite a bit about water conservation. We have businesses that are very worried about water insecurity. There is an interest in taking advantage of what falls out of the sky and investing in green stormwater infrastructure. And we have an awesome program at the City of Tempe, our Commercial Industrial Institutional Program, what they call the CII program, that has money on the table that isn't currently fully getting used. We actually have one awesome best practice example where the Downtown Tempe Authority, DTA, has gotten 12 businesses all together to work on water efficiency. And they've been working with their landlord on putting in water efficient technologies and saving on their water bill. So the DTA example of DTA working together with Local First Arizona, with a local water auditing company, and with those local businesses and their landlord is a wonderful example of the type of work we can be doing in commercial water conservation. So there's a lot of opportunity in this space. Then when it comes to partnerships, we have great starter programs in Tempe. The Tempe Chamber is one of the only chamber of commerce in the country to have a sustainability program. They have their sustainability pledge that has basically a checklist for businesses to go through to give them ideas on what beginning, intermediate, and advanced business sustainability is. So it's a good starter program. And then Local First has a very sophisticated green business infrastructure program that has been up, that we piloted. Mayor and council adopted a innovation fund project to fund Local First. And so to do this green business program, we're one of the first cities to start it in the state, us in Phoenix. And now they're in about 6 or 7 cities in Arizona. So it's a really exciting program. Now, what we did hear about partnerships is businesses felt like they had a lack of relationships and contacts. They felt like there was a lack of knowledge about how to do this. And they were also worried about a lack of capital to make some of these critical investments. They acknowledged and thought that there really was an opportunity to grow the partnership with the chamber and the partnerships with Local First in order to get access to best practices, in order to have an accountability structure and a support team to help them with their work. I've been sitting on the chamber's sustainability commission for the last 2 years, and there is this deeper interest in environmental stewardship and social responsibility. So I think more and more businesses are understanding that they should be a part of a climate action movement in Arizona and in Tempe. So there was some real honesty about what doesn't exist for businesses, what they need, and we got a much better understanding of what we need to do to grow the effectiveness of the sustainability pledge and of the green business certification program. Mobility hubs were also a highlight action for the business community. We have a great example in the upcoming development cul-de-sac. It'll be the first car-free neighborhood in the US, 17-acre lot in Tempe. We'll have a variety of transportation solutions. They're bringing in really exciting businesses that want to be a part of this. They're excited to have these transportation options both for their customers and their employees. So this is a really wonderful example about how mobility hubs and transportation demand management and alternative modes of transportation can be good for the Tempe economy and good for Tempe businesses. So with that, I'll take any additional actions that should be considered in the business agenda and any other thoughts you may have on this agenda. Yeah, it's a great point, John. So we do have a challenge with the fact that a lot of businesses are not property owners, they lease. And so that's why programs that help businesses work directly with their landlord or property owner are so important, because it's not just about working with a business and then they all have all the autonomy to make decisions. Over half of Tempe businesses are in property or buildings that they don't own. And so there's a huge opportunity. Landlords definitely have some incentive to save, but not as much as you would think, because they are not paying the energy bill, but they do have to pay for the investment. So there are different models that you can use to do that. Some of those models are not available to us in Arizona, but it is a continuing conversation as to how to motivate landlords to make those types of investments that end up really affecting their renters or leasers more than it really affects, they don't pay the energy. A lot of them don't pay their own energy bills that are paid by their tenants. But it's a great question, John. Feel free either to speak up or put any additional ideas in the chat. All right, well, if there's no comments there, we can wrap it up, and we're available for anyone that wants to stay on and give any additional feedback. So we are going to take, yes.
Braden, we do have a new comment in the chat.
Oh, nice.
It says, are communities of color well represented in the business community stakeholders that were engaged?
We did not specifically collect any data on that, but we have been in touch with the Green Business Chamber of Greater Phoenix, and they do have quite a few businesses that represent communities of color. And so that is definitely something that we need to be thinking about and working on more. But it's and something that in future contracts with Local First and the chamber, we need to be asking for that data, and we need to be finding ways to connect with business community, with businesses that are owned by people of color. So we have had some good outreach programs in the city that have targeted that. There are some nonprofits that do that kind of targeted business engagement, and that's something we can definitely continue to work on. Great point, and thanks for asking the question. So with health and wellness, health and wellness has really been a central part of the neighborhood conversation, of the climate justice agenda, and of the youth agenda. And when it comes to all of the work we've been doing on resilience to extreme heat, there's been a major focus on health and wellness from that perspective. Eddie, are there any particular health and wellness issues that you think you want to make sure we're addressing?
Yeah, and hi, Braden. Thanks for all your help on the sustainability committee in Tempe Chamber. It's awesome. You were there all the time last year. Well, and I'm not trying to plug my business at all, but as my business has been working with businesses to look in a post-pandemic world, but we get asked the question of who else is doing this work, and especially at local community level. And it's been a newer concept, but not one for us. And I just don't know if anyone's taken the lead over there in looking at sustainable business practices, whether it's also just about diversity in the workplace or just healthy workspaces, or there's a lot to sustainability. And of course, this is the climate action plan, and these things are really important, and I embrace those too. But I'd love to know if there's plans for broadening that, arch of what sustainability is.
Yeah, no, we're continuing to push into working on health and wellness. Another city effort that I would point you to that I think could be really great is we are having and Shauna, I don't know if you've worked at all yet with the folks that are doing the multi-generation certification about like the aging in place work that's coming out of human services.
A little bit. For the age-friendly Tempe designation?
Yes, the age-friendly certification. So the age-friendly, oh, go ahead, Shauna. If you don't mind saying what you know, that would be great.
Oh, no, I was just correcting myself that it was certification, not designation.
Yeah, so it's a certification program. Human Services is going to be doing some forums on how to create an age-friendly city, and that's going to be basically like a health and wellness plan for the city. So Eddie, if you want, we can put you in touch. We're happy to put you in touch with folks in Human Services that are working on that. And then we will continue to make that connection in terms of health and wellness being a critical part sustainability. So another thing I want to put on your radar is we need more input and voices. So Shauna just put into the chat the online forum, send it to your friends, your family. If you have any pets that are ambidextrous and are able to fill out forms and they want more shade, we're definitely looking for any type of input from any type of resident, human or otherwise. So please let us know any feedback you have and send this forum link to anyone that you think might want to be engaged. So we basically put the content of this forum onto an online version so that people can give us feedback. So please do that. We will be going this winter to the council. And then another really important thing to understand is as we are putting forward these agendas, we will be putting forward an investment guide in terms of the kind of infrastructure investment and program investment. And then we'll be going to the city and to different philanthropy and the federal government with grant applications trying to raise more money for all of the work and initiatives that you heard about today. So this is an ongoing process. The budget process is for this next year finalizes in June. So this is a now through June effort to make sure not only that we're adopting the climate action plan update, but that the city is also investing in climate action. And there's opportunities for you to make your voices heard and for you to encourage the city to deepen its investment in climate action. So with that, that's the end of the formal program. And then if anyone has any additional comments or thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat.